All right, I think we probably should get started here. I'm seeing that we got quite a bit of attendees here, and I'm sure a couple of people will still probably filter in, but I think it's probably a good time to get started.
Okay. On behalf of the TACCLA, I just want to welcome everyone. We're Torrance American Chamber of Business, Los Angeles chapter. So my name's Frank. It's our honor to have Derek Anderson, the CEO and the president of Biztek Solutions, our great partners who are focusing on physical security and cloud management platforms. So today we're going to share on how we can really prepare ourselves during this COVID-19 pandemic, how we can secure our communication online from our home to our office, and also how we can prepare ourselves to reopen our business, reopen our offices physically. So Derek, it's all yours.
Great, thank you very much, Frank. I really appreciate that. Welcome everybody to the webinar. Thank you everybody for taking the time out of your day today. A couple little just housekeeping things. We're going to save questions to the end. There's a Q&A where you can pose your questions as we go along. And also we unmuted everybody to begin so we could everybody could say hi and chat. But if you could do us a favor and just go ahead and mute your microphones during the presentation, and then we'll get those turned back on for the last couple of minutes for Q&A. And with that, I'll go ahead and get started. So we split our presentation in half. I'll be going for the first half here, talking about cybersecurity and what you should be concerned about as you're returning to the office or continuing with the remote workforce. And then after I go through my presentation, I'll transition back over to Frank, and he's going to talk about some of the physical security protections you can put in place. So first, I'd just like to start and do a little more introduction. Frank did a great job introducing me. And so there's a few of you on the call that know me, and then a lot of you that don't. So just give a little introduction about myself. I've been in IT for over 20 years. I'm president and CEO of an IT company called Biztek Solutions, located in Riverside. We've been in business for 14 years. Actually, I got started working in my parents' CPA practice, and so I got a strong background in business and accounting. I got a bachelor's degree in business administration and infotech, hold several industry certifications. We do a lot with compliance, especially with medical companies, so we know a lot about HIPAA compliance, things like that. My goal with my clients and anybody I help is really to just be someone that they can trust and be a trusted advisor to help them with their business, not just necessarily in things IT and cybersecurity related, but just really be a business partner. That's always my goal. My company has over 60 plus clients, and I just say we're the best protection against hackers and cyber criminals that you're going to find. So why are we here today? Bring up some information here. So we've all heard the term unprecedented times, and I think describing the COVID-19 pandemic, that's pretty accurate. We're entering at a point now where companies are having the ability to reopen and considering bringing employees back to the office. But a lot of companies are also seeing this as a new normal, and employees are happy working from home. So how do they transition? What's the strategy for the long run? When all of this hit, many companies had to quickly come up with a solution to enable employees to work from home. The focus was primarily around productivity, just trying to find a way to enable employees to keep working, try to keep the business going, keep revenue coming in. And there wasn't a lot of time to strategize or plan and really think about even cybersecurity. It was an operational survival first mode, and everything else was a bit of an afterthought. So typically remote workers are a small percentage of the workforce, about 3%, and a lot of companies, almost half, don't allow any remote work at all. But no business, large or small, really plan for 100% remote access. We saw a huge spike in internet traffic during the past few months. And when it's properly planned, a business would normally provide employees a device to work remotely. But this, this happened so quickly, there wasn't a lot of equipment sitting around to just say, oh, we got 20 people, we got to send them home. So that really made a reliance on employers to rely on their employees to use their home computers and work on their home networks. And that really increases the attack surface for cyber criminals. There's more devices, more ways of accessing the data. And so now, our exposure has increased. And as business owners, we really we should be concerned about security. We have an obligation to protect not only our own business, but the data that we hold. And if we have, personal information, names, address, social security numbers, medical records, we have a responsibility to protect that. So we want to extend cybersecurity culture and best practices beyond the walls of our office and extend it into our employees' homes or remote offices, however we're working, and really protect our data, our business, our customers, our employees, and their families. So we're going to start off at looking at why this is important. And most small business owners I talk to don't think anything will happen to them, and that's because they've never experienced any type of cyber attack, virus, or data breach. Then we're going to discuss how the bad guys are getting in. There's no new tricks, but during COVID-19, we've seen a huge increase in COVID-related threats and scams. And we're also going to cover the #1 threat to your business right now. And then I'm going to finish my portion of the discussion around the steps you should take to prepare to reopen, whether or not everyone is returning to the office or you plan on maintaining a remote work from home environment. So let's start with the why. I know given the current situation of uncertainty and everything in the news around COVID-19, we've had riots and looting and murder hornets. And I mean, every day it's something new that it's negative, it's fear-based. And so I really don't have an intention to further propagate that fear with my next slides, but I really feel it's important that you have to just understand how bad cybercrime is in the world today, so you understand why it's important. The first thing to know is that cyber attacks are not decreasing in any way, but they're rather increasing at astronomical rates. Cybercrime is actually the most prevalent type of crime against businesses right now, and it's just growing. Millions of new pieces of malware are released each year, and it's continuing to grow in volume. And not only in volume, it grows in sophistication as the attackers get smarter and they do everything they can to find ways to evade detection. So, okay, back in the day, let's have antivirus. Well, they figured out ways to get around antivirus. Now we got to have a firewall. They figure out a way around firewalls. So it's always this constant battle. As they learn new ways to get past our security, we're finding new ways to secure our business. And that's why there's so many more pieces of malware out there. So with all the new malware, the primary target is actually small businesses. And so why are small businesses the prime target? Well, some of the reasons to me seem obvious, but it may not be to everybody. But let's think about a smaller budget. We don't have unlimited resources to spend hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars like the big companies. A lot of small businesses I talk to, they have someone that they know is computer savvy managing their network, but that person's not necessarily skilled on cybersecurity. Or maybe they have old computers and haven't kept up with patching and getting new equipment. But really, most importantly, small businesses just don't believe that it would happen to them, that their data why is their data valuable to a hacker, or that training their employees on how to use their computer securely is anything they need to do. But if we look at some of the data on this slide, the top left over there is actually showing, when you look at the ratio of infected emails targeting users to the size of the company, you can see that a company with less than 250 employees receives 50% of the amount of infected emails targeting users of companies that are over 2,500 in size. And of all the victims of cybercrime, 58% were classified as a small business, and that number's rising. It's essentially that hackers know that most small businesses don't have the resources to protect their business, and so they're the low-hanging fruit. Hackers are lazy. If they can get in easier, they're going to do that. And so that's really why small businesses are the target. So we've got the cost of a data breach. And so what happens when there's a breach? And this is just a ballpark average of an accumulated cost of things that your business could suffer after any type of data breach. You've got one, and this is non-monetary, but embarrassment of maybe appearing stupid or irresponsible because it happens. It is embarrassing. I mean, if it happens, it's nothing that we're going to be proud of. Then you have the cost of protecting employee or client data. You might have to buy credit monitoring for them, reputational damage, loss of credibility, loss of clients for not protecting their data, or if your systems are down, you might have loss of revenue from systems down. You get involved in lawsuits, you have legal fees. If you have compliance, that opens up another can of worms. If you had loss of data, how do you replace that? Or if you had to pay ransom, you have downtime and productivity. So things can escalate really quickly in terms of a cost. But really, the question is, what's motivating these guys to cause this pain for small businesses? And it's really simple. It's money. Because all those are the costs that I just talked about to the business. But how are these guys making money? Cybercrime is thriving and growing. And these guys, they're actually setting it up as businesses now, but they're not legitimate businesses. So they don't have the overhead and the taxes. They're not worried about doing things the right way, but they'll hire, they'll fire, they'll employ people to help grow their crime network. You can buy credit card details, social security numbers, and a number of other programs to set up your own crime ring. You can say, I want to send out ransomware to thousands of people. You can get the software for free or paid for a small fee on the out on the internet. And so it makes it real easy to have no hacking skills and be an amateur and set up your own little crime ring and try to make money. I mean, amateurs are making upwards of $80,000 a month stealing and selling data. It's incredible. I mean, more money than I'm making, that's for sure, but I'd rather sleep at night. So moving on, how do they get this information? If I say, okay, I'm an amateur, I want to go try to make $80,000 a month, and I'm going to just wreak havoc on people and small businesses and steal their data and sell it. Where does it happen? It happens on the dark web. And you may have heard about the dark web. Maybe you haven't. It's becoming more common on commercials and all of that about identity theft. But if you look at the image on the screen, the surface web makes up about 4% of the entire internet. And that's what we all see on a day in and day out basis. Google, Yahoo, Facebook, you know, LinkedIn, social, any type of social media, Amazon, that's all the surface web. And when you get underneath the surface of the water and you see the bottom of the iceberg where it's much bigger, that's the deep web. And there's nothing bad in the deep web. This is online databases, cloud services, things of that nature. But then we get even further down and we've got the dark web, and that's where all the illegal activities happen. You can't just stumble upon the dark web with your Chrome browser, internet browser, Safari. You've got to download a special browser called a Tor browser. Not recommending you do that, but you'll find stuff you don't want to find when you use a Tor browser to access the dark web. This is where drug trafficking, human trafficking occurs, any type of illegal activity. This is where you can go buy stolen credit card credentials, stolen passwords, things like that. So on the right-hand side, how hackers use this is we've got Russian hackers claiming that they can take stolen credentials off of the dark web and try to use it to hack into a company. And it takes them about 19 minutes to do so if those credentials are good. And then once they're in there, they stay on that network for an average of 197 days, just taking data, looking around, seeing what they can get. And by the time a company finds out they've been on there, I'll tell you it's too late. And that's typically when you're getting pop-ups about ransomware and things like that. A good example, I'm sure everybody remembers a couple of years ago, Equifax got hacked. Almost all of us had our information compromised with that Equifax hack. It was later found out that the hackers were on Equifax's network for over 6 months, just taking data. So they don't get in and leave quickly. They get in and hang around to see how much damage they can cause. So even if your company has insurance, like a cyber liability insurance, a cyber breach can still be very costly. Ransomware attacks averaged $36,000 last year. I just read some articles recently. There's a crime ring that's now starting to demand ransomware in the millions. And it's just going beyond that. So one of the best protections against ransomware is to have a really good backup of your system. So with ransomware, just a quick education, it's a piece of malware or a virus, if you will, on your system that locks out all your files. And when you try to open up your Word document or your Excel or your PDF, a pop-up comes up and says, hey, we locked your files, but if you pay us, you know, a couple $1,000s, we'll give you the keys so you can unlock them. Well, if you had a really good backup, you can restore your files from before they were encrypted and locked up, and you think you're good to go. Well, hackers have gotten smart about that. So they want to make sure that if they spent 6 months on your network and then they ransomwared you and then you just restored from backup, well, they want to get paid for their time. So what they're starting to do is demand a ransom saying that, okay, well, you restored your data, but we took a copy of your data, and if you don't pay us, we're going to release all the information on the dark web. So it's total extortion. They're finding any way that they can to extort money out of good business owners like ourselves. So how do these guys get in? There's a ton of ways to get in. But the good news about it, even though there's all these ways that these bad guys can get in, there's a lot of ways you can prevent them. There's a piece of technology, a strategy, something that you can do to protect against every one of these. And I'm not going to go into these in detail. And this is not definitely an all-inclusive list of what's out there. But for every way that they can get in, there's definitely a way to prevent it. So let's talk about the threats. I got three big threats that I want to talk about today. And the first one is unsecured devices. And that was the biggest threat during this crisis. If we sent remote workers that are typically in the office working on computers that we should be properly securing, now they're on their home computers. They're not managed, they're not secured, they're not in your office environment. So we don't even know what's on them. We don't know who has access to them. These computers are typically shared, and kids have access to the computer. And I'll tell you, viruses and malware are very common on the home PCs. Also, nobody's putting a firewall in their home. Firewalls are not cheap. They cost good money. Most people in their homes are using the modem or the Wi-Fi router that their internet provider gave them, or they're going to some place like Best Buy and buying a Wi-Fi router there. Those are great to share the internet in the house and stream Netflix, but they don't provide any security. And then we also don't know if their Wi-Fi is even properly secured. Is there a password on it? Does it have encryption? Who else is on their home network? Think of all the devices in your home: TVs, tablets, phones, Ring doorbells. Did you ever share your Wi-Fi with your neighbor? So the bottom line is a home computer network is far more likely to be less secured than your office network. Second threat I want to talk about, social engineering. This is the common stuff, right? The things we think about: phishing emails, malicious websites, even phone calls and texts, social media, the fake news posts. All of that is all the same stuff that's been around, but it exponentially increased with COVID-19. Here's a few examples of the ones that we saw examples of during the past few months. The cyber criminals are using COVID-19 to spread malware and catch people when they're the most vulnerable. It's a prime time to attack people when they're not focused or thinking clearly. They're making quick decisions on things and being bombarded with COVID-related communications and email and social media. I mean, I'm sure everybody here has had multiple emails a day about COVID-19. And so it makes it really easy for the bad guys to just slip another one in your inbox and hope you click on it. But they use the same tricks that they've used before in phishing emails and things like that, trying to get you to click on a site. If you look at the email on the right, I know part of it's in Russian, but there's red squares around the boxes. It'll show that, you got to really pay attention to where these links and who the senders are. And it's just really being aware. So old trick, just increased levels of attack. And the same rules apply. The bank's not going to email you for your password. The IRS doesn't call or email you. So when those things happen, Microsoft can't call you and say, oh, hey, we got something weird on your computer. Those are all scams, and they just increased during the past few months. And then this one's really big. This is threat number 3, privileged access. And what this means is, in order to do their job, your employees, you're giving them access to the data and systems like you have to do their job. In the office, you can control who has access to what. You know who's using the computers. You can control who's able to log into certain computers, and you can control physical data such as files and folders by locking them in drawers. But what about when they're using their home computer? Do we know anybody else that's accessing the computer? Are your employees ensuring no one else in their home can access or see company data on their computer, or maybe any physical files they took home? How do you control employees from saving important or sensitive information to their home computer or in a file sharing service? What if they printed sensitive documents and they were left unattended in the home? And then lastly, if you had to lay anybody off during the pandemic, did you ensure those people no longer have access to email and your computer systems? Did you properly offboard them? You know, delete their accounts, change their passwords, lock them out of the system. The last thing you want is to have somebody that's disgruntled because they got laid off, but you didn't remove their access to, say, email or any other system, and now they could have some malicious intent. So let's talk about what we can do to protect our business. And it really always starts with an assessment. The first thing you want to do is identify your needs, capabilities, and risks. So we've talked about the bad things that can happen. We know how the bad guys are getting in. We've talked about some of the big threats. Now we just want to figure out what can we do? What steps can we take? So you want to figure out who you gave access to during COVID-19. You know, anybody that was allowed to work from home, let's identify who that was. What data or systems were they able to access, or did we allow them to access? How did they remote access? You know, what systems did they use? Did you add anything? And then you also want to start to review the logs. You know, let's see whether any infections, do we notice anything different on our systems? So it's a whole big analysis of what's going on. And we're going to dive in just a little bit deeper here in the next couple of slides. So first thing here, evaluate any new technology you deployed during the crisis. So maybe you were able to go out and buy some new laptops or tablets, or maybe you subscribe to Office 365. Whatever tools you use, maybe you don't need them going forward. So evaluate those. Create a list of any new devices. Decide if you still need them or if you can let them go. And evaluate how new technology was implemented. Determine what worked, what fell short. And then evaluate maybe any licenses you purchased. I mean, I think we're all still using Zoom, but maybe as we move forward, we don't need it. Well, don't incur the expense. Let's let that Zoom subscription go if we don't need it moving forward. So you want to evaluate that technology. Next, this is really big. Evaluate your service providers that you use to run your business. Did your vendors live up to their service agreements? We call them SLAs, service level agreement. And if they didn't, determine the cause. You know, pay close attention to those vendors and how they performed. And when I say the vendors that you're looking at, and this isn't by any means an all-inclusive list, but you got your IT support companies, your telecom providers for phone and internet, your web developers, marketing companies, cleaning crews, security systems. How did they perform during the crisis, and how did they help your business? And if they met your expectations, they did a good job, you got a great relationship. If they didn't, maybe it's time to find somebody else that can help you in time of crisis. And then if you have any employees that's going to continue to work from home, you want to audit the technology that they're going to be using. Determine if it's appropriate, if it's secure, and if it's sufficient for optimal productivity. You're also going to want to run an audit on the workstations in the office. You maybe had several computers that you shut down and were off for a few months. So you want to make sure they're properly updated and patched. If they were off, they weren't getting updates. The antivirus wasn't getting updates. So you don't want people to just come back in the office, turn them on and start working. If they're not properly updated or the antivirus isn't updated, then they're at more risk from any other cyber attacks, viruses, things of that nature. So you want to make sure it's still installed and make sure it's up to date. And then you also just want to check any other software applications too, and make sure that, you know, those need to be up to date. But most importantly, especially on a Windows computer, make sure Windows updates are installed, make sure the antivirus is still running and it's fully up to date. Next step is going to be to document a list of employees that use their personal computers. Big recommendation here is to develop a plan to ensure that if they're going to continue to use a personal computer, that it complies with company standards. Like I mentioned earlier, we probably quickly said, hey, just go home and work on your own computer. Well, now, as we have some more time, it's time to evaluate that and maybe help them secure their home computer better, give them some policies to ensure their compliance. And then definitely just ask them to change their passwords for their device, their email accounts, remote access accounts. We don't know if their home computer was already infected with malware before they started working on it. Just a good practice to change passwords and keep those fresh. And then if you allowed employees to take any equipment home, you want to catalog all of that. Hopefully you did that from the beginning, but at least now take an inventory. I know in my own business, I had some of my team taking home monitors and even chairs, things like that. They said, hey, the chair at my house isn't as comfortable as my office chair. I said, okay, take it home. We created a log of everything that was removed from the office. So you want to ensure your business and intellectual property by knowing what's out there, the devices, the files, the lists, the documents. Make sure you know where it's at, get it returned to the office or log where it is. And you also want to make sure and find out if any files were downloaded or saved on an employee's personal computer. So really important to know where that data is. Next step is going to be conducting a gap analysis. This is huge in protecting your business. We've probably all heard about a SWOT analysis, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What gaps were exposed during the crisis, and plan on how you can address them going forward. You know, none of us foresaw this coming, but now we can use this experience to develop a plan of how we can better approach something like this the next time it happens, because odds are something like this will happen again in the future. Next, you want to also schedule a review of your disaster recovery or business continuity plan. If you don't have one, now's a great time to create one. If you have one, you want to see what can be improved upon, you know, what worked, how easy was it to transition from office to work from home? How was the business impacted? You know, review it and update it and make changes. And so next time you pick that up, if you had a plan, you know, okay, now we have more strategy to this of how, you know, we can quickly send everybody home to work, or, you know, what happens when this, you know, certain things happen. And if you didn't have a plan, well, take what you learned and use that to develop an initial plan. And then once you have that plan, you want to have it, you want to continually test it, schedule it at least once, if not twice a year. Quarterly is advisable. It should be a routine part of your business. You know, after we've seen what happened, I mean, it shows the importance and the value of doing that to make sure that everything that we're doing and our plans, you know, we can, you know, not have to think as much. It just becomes a checklist. Okay, did we do this? Did we do that? Makes it much easier, especially in a time of stress when things have to happen quickly. So all of that might sound like a lot of work, and you might say, I'm not technical. Where do I start? What do I do? I don't even know how to audit my systems. I don't even know, you know, you gave me some good questions to ask. Maybe how do I find out if data is on my employees' home computers? So I have an offer for everybody today that we're offering for all attendees is a free system assessment. We'll look at, you know, how things worked out. Are your systems truly secured? Are they updated? Do you have good backups in place? Are you unknowingly exposing data that could be part of a data breach? Are there new tools and technology that you can use to better have a work from home environment or enable people to work remotely? So we look at some cloud solutions and things like that. And really, is everything optimized for speed and performance? So you want to make sure that everybody can work quickly. So I've got the URL up on the screen. I know it's kind of a long one. I do apologize about that. I'm going to put up my information here in just a moment. So if you guys want to call or email me to inquire more about that, I'm happy to have that conversation. But that's something we wanted to offer to everybody here on the call today. And then I'm also going to send out something to everybody. We've got a list of everybody that registered. It's what I call the 18 things. And this was really the 18 ways you can make sure that anybody that's working from home secures their home work environment, that home computer, their home office. But I'll tell you honestly, a lot of these strategies, it's the same thing you guys should be doing in your businesses as well to protect your business computers. So it's a nice little checklist of things that need to be done. And so I'm going to give that to everybody today. And actually, you know, the image on the screen shows a little icon with a checklist, but it's actually a couple pages long with some really specific things to walk you through how to do it. And once you receive that, if you have any questions about it, please don't hesitate to reach out. Here's all of my contact information. I'll leave it up here on the screen. My office phone number, my email, our company website, and then definitely feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love the opportunity to connect with everybody there. I push out a lot of educational content in regards to cybersecurity and IT. Lots of free stuff that I put out to just help educate everybody on what's going on in the world and what those threats are so they can protect their business. So with that, that ends my portion of the presentation here. I'm going to transition over to Frank so he can talk about some other areas of security that everybody should be concerned about. Frank, you ready to go? I'll stop sharing and give you control here.
Thank you, Derek. You're gonna make me the host, correct?
Yes, I am doing that right now.
Okay.
Can you say something real quick just so I can confirm it's you?
Yes, it is me.
Yep, got it. All right, I see you, making you the host.
Okay. Yeah, I got be able to share my screen now.
Got the option there?
Yep, let me share it right now. Can you see my screen now, Derek?
Yep.
Okay. All right, before I started, just a quick reminder for all of you, if you have any questions, you can actually raise the questions on, just click yourself and you will be able to raise a question. And after my presentation, I will be able to answer the questions with Derek together. So I think Derek mentioned a lot of good tips to protect you, from the web, cyber attacks. I want to start from a different point of view. Now, when a lot of companies that reopen their business, one of the biggest risks they're looking at right now is actually how we can protect our employees, right? Actually, in California, our Governor Gavin Newsom, this is the actually order we downloaded from the state of California website. This executive order was signed on May 6th. So basically, it said that any COVID-19 related claims are now eligible for your workers' compensation policy. So basically, what our governors say that is they want to protect our business owners, right? So if you got any claims from your employees, they say, hey, they got COVID-19 because they go back to work, you will be able to pass it over to your insurance company. They will take over from them. However, what you're going to happen, you can foresee next year when you see your premiums, you're going to go up, skyrocketed because you got so much claims this year. So they're going to charge you the annual premiums much bigger next year. And that's actually the thing we try to help the business to prepare themselves from any potential COVID-19 claims when they reopen their business. You can see this is signed just last month, just May 6th by Gavin Newsom. So when the executive order is signed, how we can really prepare for the reopening. There are a couple of checklists, like Derek mentioned from your cybersecurity point of view. There are a couple of things for your own offices as well. How is your facility planning for a safe workplace reopening, right? So do you have enough the PPE equipment, like face mask, the gloves? Do you have your the handheld thermostat? Is that FDA approved? Because when you documented the temperature, you wanted to make sure is FDA approved the equipment. Do you set up enough hand cleaning stations, like frequent hand washing? You got the guidelines posted on your wall. Do you implement the social distancing, the principles? And do you have enough cleaning supplies or doing the mass sanitization in your offices? So these are all the different checklists you want to go through before you reopen your business. One of the biggest recommendation from the CDC is they want to screen the people, the employees walk into the building to see if they got the fevers or high temperatures. So the couple of things you want to think over, like if, for example, your offices might have 4 different access, do you want to reduce it to only 1 or 2 access so you can set up the check-in station more conveniently? How many employees they can get the building access? And if you're using a lot of the people now, they're using the handheld thermostat, right? They're getting one of their employees taking temperatures at the entrances. So what are you expecting is the long lines, right? The people are waiting in lines because they have to keep social distance. Is a 6 feet separation enough? The most important thing now is last week, we just finished up one of the AI screening tool system we just talked about today in one of our customers. The customers, they have over 600 employees in the manufacturing sites. He has to pay overtime to one of his HR department's employees to standing at the entrances and take a temperature of every people walking into the building. And first of all, that's overtime. And the second of all, that's a very, very risky position for that person, just standing at the entrances, trying to take a temperature from every person walking in. And there's a risk of cross-contamination, right? Because you won't be able to switch out the different thermostat because it's different people walking in. You're using the same thermostat, taking temperatures for everyone walking into the building. So that's a big risk as well. And as soon as the system is implemented for that customer, he already told us he got his return on investment within 2 weeks because he won't need to pay the overtime to the HR departments, and he will be able to log everything because of this AI thermal system. So what if the entry screening? What will be this will be easier. So first of all, you don't have to wait in line. So the system we're talking about will be able to scan multiple people at the same time. The second of all is you can still keep your normal building entry throughputs. You don't have to, like if you now go to Costco, you will see people lining up during the weekends. You won't see that happening in your own offices. And besides, it will reduce the employees' concerns, right? When people waiting in line, they're waiting, oh, I need to clock in just because I have to start at 8 a.m., but because I'm waiting in line, I have to be at the entrances like 7:30. So that's a frustration you may see, and also the fears and anxiety. That's why we try to prevent this from happening. And as I just mentioned, you will reduce the possible cross-contamination, because now you don't have any contact for the personnel who is going to take in the temperature for everyone walking in. And you're actually not using the same thermostat taking temperatures for every people that's waiting in line. So that's what we're talking about is AI thermal system is a screening tool system. This is actually pretty easy to set up. The system itself, the camera got actually 2 lenses, which means you get the first lens. This is give you the 1080p HD video that you will be able to see the person's face very easily. The second lens, the second smaller lens over here, that's actually a thermal camera lens. So you will be able to detect the temperature of the persons who walking into the building, and you get 2 pictures at the same time. So when there's like a future events that you want to go back to check, you will get both videos. So the system that we use, the chipset from the 1080p video, that's actually from the USA company called Umbrella. They're based in Silicon Valley. And the thermal camera chipset we used is actually from FLIR, which is another USA company. So we make sure this is a USA made chipset that actually echo to what Derek mentioned. We want to make sure it's fully comply with the cybersecurity standards. The system is very easy to set up. We're just looking at before we shipped out the system from our offices, everything is pre-programmed and pre-configured. So you actually got the thermal camera I just mentioned. The viewing stations is all pre-configured. So all you have to do is just plug the cameras into the viewing station port when you receive it. Due to pandemic, we know a lot of companies that don't really allow third-party people or installers to come into their building. That's why when we designed the system, we're thinking about DIY package. We want to have everything set up pre-programmed. So when the customer get it, they actually put the Cat6e, the internet port, and power it on. And you will be able to see the imagery when you open the software. So we're talking about less than 10 minutes setup time for the regular users in the company. Easy to set up and very easy to use. So you will be able to get, just within 10 minutes, you will see this is actually the imagery of the system. You will get the person's face with a 1080p high quality video. You also get the temperature check alerts. When the person's got a high temperature alerts, you will get the visual and also audio events notification. So you will see the video pops up to remind any personnel on site. You also get the audio alarms as well. And simultaneously, you will also get the email notification to whatever email address you want to send out remotely, either to the manager's office or to the different personnel who needs to get notification. The last thing, which is very important, because we all talk about, the first thing we talk about is you want to protect the business from any potential claims. So we actually can capture the snapshots of the personnel who had a high temperature alerts that can store it in your desired file folder. So like when the insurance company came over and say, hey, I received a COVID-19 claims, I want to see when this employee is coming to a building last week, what's his temperature check? What's his record? You will be able to go to that file folder and pull that data off and send it to your insurance company. Because one thing you can prove is that, okay, if the employees come into the building and say, hey, this week, say, hey, I got COVID-19, I want to submit a claim, you will be able to pull the data from past Monday to Friday, say, every time you walk into the building, you're perfectly fine. We get the temperature check. So you might get a COVID-19 because you went to your friends or neighborhood's houses and having a barbecue during the weekend. So it's nothing related to working in my office. It's because we did everything we just said when we prepare to reopen our offices. So this is very important. You want to have a log and you want to have all the files ready to go when you have a claim. And this is the most important thing, is the fourth step, is how you can do as a secondary check. Again, the system we have, that's a screening tool system. That's not a medical devices. So based on the CDC guideline, you want to have a FDA approved the thermostat to do a dual validation. So what we recommend our partners, when you get a high temperature alert, you don't want to take a secondary check right on site, right? First of all, you may create attentions, or the people waiting in line say, hey, why he got high temperature, still want to walk into the building. You will invite the person to the separate room and you use FDA approved thermostat to do a secondary check. And if that still shows a high temperature, then you want to document it. You would say, this is employee's name, what's the date of today, what's the time, what's his temperature, and have him sign it. And when you keep that document, so whenever there's a claims, you first get the data from our AI thermal system, and you also got this document because you're using a secondary screening tool with FDA approved equipment. So you're fully protected yourself when there's any claims happening. So just want to let everybody know, the thermal system has been up and running for the past 5 years. We've been using this thermal system a lot, like in the border control, the border security. And that's actually in like what we've been doing with the CBP in the border between Mexico and the US. That the system we have, the thermal cameras, has been implemented in the Calexico ports, also the Tijuana ports. So they're checking if there are any people trying to cross the border at night. And actually, one of our customers in Central California, they're using this system just 3 years ago, start monitoring the temperature of their livestock. So this system is really being very stable and being used for the past 5 years. And just because of this COVID-19, we redesigned the system to be more easy to use and to be more DIY focused. So again, we're talking about where can it be deployed. There's definitely a lot of places, right? The school district, they're talking about reopening, maybe in August and September, right? So they must do something to protect the teachers and the students. And we're talking about like commercial buildings, the warehouses. The system actually be implemented, like we just mentioned, in one of the very large manufacturers in Long Beach in the warehouses. So they're using on a daily basis and keeping the record. And we're talking about like now we don't have any like NBA, like MLB, but can you imagine when Staples Centers reopened, you're gonna have 18,000 people lining up to get their temperature check. It won't happen, right? So you can foresee this gonna be a new normal that we're gonna be dealing with, I mean, for the next, I would say 6 to 12 months. And we're also talking about like hospitals, we're talking about the military facilities that we've been working with. And this is the last page, and then we'll get into the Q&A session. Just want to share with all of you guys the country of origin of the products. The cameras we talk about, that's manufactured in Taiwan, and we're all using the USA chipset. The viewing station we talk about, including the monitors, the switches, and also the servers, is manufactured in California, here in our Chino Hills offices. So we do not manufacture in mainland China, nor do we use any components from mainland China. And that's a TA compliance is actually issued by Department of Commerce from federal government of United States. So there are only 3 countries in Asia got the TA compliance, South Korea, Japan, and Taiwan. So we're proud of being TA compliant. And as today's focus is about cybersecurity, the system was designed with the employee safety and privacy in mind. So we definitely want to make sure we're fully compliant with NDAA compliance from the Homeland Security. And all the tech support in the product warehouses is done in California. So in case you need any support, you will be able to get it locally. And just with the call or the phone email away, you will be able to get the answers. That's pretty much it. And I'm gonna go back to Derek.
Great job. Very informative. I've seen the product in action. It's really cool. And the whole entire product line with the AI that you guys have, the artificial intelligence, it's really impressive. So I've been monitoring the chat here. We had one question posed. If anybody else has any other questions, please put them in the chat. But we had Christopher ask a question in regards to any recommendations for a home firewall appliance. Well, so I know I mentioned, you know, the routers, the Wi-Fi routers and whatnot that you can go buy at a Best Buy or Staples, and a lot of those are going to say they have a firewall. I wouldn't really call them a firewall. So anything like that you're going to buy that, you know, would work in the home, you know, the recommendation I made to Christopher was SonicWall, Soho 250, SonicWall, Fortinet, Cisco. They all make some sort of, you know, lower cost firewall that's going to be secure. But to be honest, it'll probably require a little bit of IT help unless you're tech savvy to configure it. I know my company, we use SonicWalls for our clients' firewalls, much more sophisticated than even the Soho, but we do put the Soho in some small offices. I mean, we have a whole article series of checklists of things that have to be configured, and unfortunately, they don't come out of the box just configured for security. You would think that they would. So that would be my recommendation. Anything you go along those lines probably need a little IT help, but if you're looking for something like consumer grade, that's super easy to set up, you won't have to call an IT guy, you want to put it in your home. I actually use this myself. You would think I have a firewall in my house, but I mean, granted, I do watch and know what's going on in my network, but I use a product called EERO, E-E-R-O. It's a wireless mesh. It's high performance, makes it real easy to set up, connect all your devices. You can easily kick your kids off the network if they're on their iPad or their Xbox and they're gaming away or social meeting away and they're not getting their chores done. You can just pull up the app on your phone, kick them off. But they also offer a $30 a month subscription that enables a lot of advanced security features to keep your home and network protected. So if you want something super simple, I know Christopher said, hey, EERO's owned by Amazon and they're going to data mine us. Yeah, they might. But if you got an Alexa device or a Google Home, I mean, it's doing it too. Your phone's probably mining a lot of that data. I accept that as, you know, part of just the way life is these days. But I'm most concerned about keeping the bad guys off of my system. So that would be my recommendation.
I also got a question here. they're asking if this system going to be tied into your existing IT or security system. The answer is no. We understand that the IT and the security is very sophisticated with the businesses. So the screening tool system we talk about can be purely standalone. And you can actually put it at the entrances of the building, and all you have to do is just connect it to the power. And if you already got a Wi-Fi networks in your offices, connect the system to the Wi-Fi you have. And we already preloaded with the TeamViewer access. So if you need any programming help, we can just using your Wi-Fi log into a system set up for you. So it doesn't have to be tied into your existing system, so which is very easy to get it set up.
And I've got two other questions that I commonly get asked. I'm not seeing them in the chat here, but these are two questions I get asked all the time. I do these type of cybersecurity webinars pretty often. So one question I always get asked is, if there was one thing I could do to protect my business, what would it be? It's like, is there that magic silver bullet? Is there a really good antivirus? Or like the question, what firewall do I get in my home? And unfortunately, there's really not one thing that's gonna give you the ultimate protection. It's a collection of things. But I always tell business owners, the one thing that you can do best to protect your business is training, is to train your people how to watch for bad emails, how to hover over a link and not just click on anything, how to really raise their awareness of things they're opening, clicking on, files they're downloading. Because I'll tell you honestly, you could spend all the money in the world and buy all the best firewalls, all the best antivirus, all the best of everything, but all it takes is one person's bad click to bypass all of that, it's sad to say, and let an attacker in. So that would be my recommendation, is train your people, raise their awareness. It's a service that we offer, but it's something that really helps cut down attacks. The more people know, the more educated you are, the better equipped you are to fight the attack. And then to follow that up, of all the protections, antivirus, firewall, training, which is most important? Well, yeah, training is really important, but let's assume, you train your people and something still gets in, and you've got an antivirus, you got firewall. What's the best thing you can do? Backup, right? That backup's going to be that last line of defense if things get through, because I tell everybody, nothing's 100%. We see big attacks all the time. Large companies that have millions of dollars and round-the-clock IT teams, and they still get hacked. They still have a breach. No one's immune to it, but what you can rely on is a really good backup system in case anything gets through. So those are two common questions I get, and that's my advice to individuals and businesses on that.
Thank you, Derek. I saw another question here on the chat. What size of business are suitable to use this type of devices? So that's a great question. Basically, any business that is over 10 employees and you have their existing workers' compensation policy, that's really been the key of to implement the system. Because if you got people more than 10 employees, which means if you want to keep that 6 feet social distancing, you have to wait in line. So that's our first step. The second part, if you already got the workers' compensation policy, you want to make sure you implement it. Again, the AI thermal system, just one part. You want to have, starting with the PPE equipment, you want to have a reopening plan, and you got an AI thermal system doing the check. And lastly, you want to have the dual validation. So that's just a complete reopening plan based on the CDC guideline. So that's really been my advice. And another question I got over here, what's the cost range for the thermal camera system? The turnkey system is a DIY package, and it's below $8,000 as a turnkey solution. So if you got any questions, feel free to email me. I'm posting my email address at the chat, and we can definitely design the system based on your the building needs. And I think, Derek, that's a question for you. What do you suggest for cell phone
text spam protection? Well, so that's really tough because there's not a spam protection for a call or a text, right? If your number's out there, anybody can call or text it. So what you can do is, I forget the name of the act, but years ago when we all still had regular landlines in our homes, you could put your number on a do not call list. Well, you can do that with your cell phone now as well. So you can put your cell phone on a do not call list. I'll say you'll probably still get calls. But the other thing that, this is a strategy I do, once I see that come in from a number, whether it's a text or a call, you have the ability, almost all smartphones have it, to block that call and block that number so that you don't get them anymore. But unfortunately, there's no software or anything or an app that you can put on your phone that's going to prevent that text message from coming in.
Perfect. I think if no further questions, Ken, can you hear us? Do you want to unmute yourself? Ken? Ken, can you hear me? No, I can see him talking right now. Ken, 会长，你听得到我们说话吗？ Probably not.
Frank， 我可以问你一个问题吗？
是，请
你那个
问问题，没有问题。
OK， 你那个 temperature 那个装在银行会不会对客人有没有疏离啊？
不会呢，因为它其实是一个，它就跟 CCTV 一样，因为那个银行里面本来就已经有 CCTV 的系统，所以只要银行在门外面有贴一个 sign 说这个 this property is under CCTV surveillance， 那这套系统是一模一样，它是 apply the same rules。
OK， 好。
其他商会的先进有没有什么问题？可以用中文问。If you have any more questions you want to ask, you can unmute yourself.
有没有餐厅在装这个？
餐厅有啊，有餐厅在装这个系统。是的 ，OK。All right, so Derek, do you have the final thought before we close in today's sharing?
I just want to thank everybody for taking the time out of your busy days. I know that your time is valuable, so we really appreciate you attending our webinar today. I hope you found the information valuable. We'll be sending out a follow-up email to everybody. We'll make sure that both Frank's and my information is there. In case you have any other questions or need any follow-up information, Frank and I'll be happy to answer whatever questions you have. But I just really want to thank the chamber here for allowing me to be on again. It's quite an honor, and thank you everybody for attending and giving me the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you all. We will be posting this recording file on the chamber website, so feel free to watch the video or share with the other people. Thank you so much.